Now we turn to a story of hope and courage. A new book focusing on the true story of Kurdish women in Syria who took on ISIS and won. Women who defied not only their own culture by becoming commanders of an elite fighting unit to take on a terrorist group who had been kidnapping and raping women, but at the same time they were promoting women's rights and social change, making a lasting difference in their country. Joining me now is the author of the book, Gayle Tzemach Lemmon, adjunct senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Her new book is called The Daughters of Kobani, a story of rebellion, courage, and justice. Gayle, congratulations. Your book is compelling. Full disclosure, we are friends. I'm proud to call you a friend, but I am just in awe of what you have accomplished. I've known over the years your multiple trips into the fighting zone, into this combat zone where most people, most journalists would be afraid to go. How did you hear about the women fighters? Tell us the backstory of how you got involved.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I remember you telling Admiral McRaven, trying to convince him to convince me not to go to Syria, Andrea. Yes. This story happened when one of the soldiers from Ashley's War, which is a book I wrote about an all-women special operations team, she called me from Syria and she said, Gayle, you have to come see this. There are women leading in the fight against ISIS. And it's not just that they're leading in battle. It's that they have the full respect of the men they serve alongside and huge, deep respect from the U.S. Special Operations soldiers alongside whom they were working and who were part of this training effort. And I think that whole question of how did this experiment in women's equality come to be on the ashes of the ISIS fight, and who were these women who fought the Islamic State room by room and house by house and town by town, not just for themselves, but for the United States, right? For the entire world. They took on stopping ISIS. I just had to learn more.
And tell me some of the backstories of some of these women, because these are women who had faced losing their villages or being kidnapped themselves, or knowing people who were kidnapped and raped by the ISIS terrorists.
They all have really interesting, incredible stories. And I think truly, like so many of the women who are watching today, you know, they were going to be doctors or pharmacists. And then war came and changed the entire face of what their lived experience would be. So Rojda was one who she loved Brazilian soccer and always was trying to play soccer. In fact, when she was a little girl, her uncle dressed up as a ghost to discourage her from playing soccer because that was not what girls were supposed to do. And we follow her on this journey to lead not just in battle in Kobani, which is really the first time ISIS is handed a battlefield loss, but to serve as America's partner when it came to trying to get ISIS out of Raqqa, which was its capital. And in fact, some of the folks from the American side who worked with her wrote me just last night and said, I'm so thankful that you're telling the story of these incredible women. And that is, I think, their journey. You know, one other woman's Nareen. Her parents said, you can't marry who you want. You can't love who you will. You can't take university study. But she ends up becoming one of the battlefield commanders who leads the liberation of her hometown from ISIS. And I think it's the humanity amid the inhumanity that I really wanted readers to see, and I really wanted them to get to know.
What has happened to these women since, and especially since the American withdrawal?
Well, this is the question, right? The question now is, this is about America's national security. This is the partner who lost 10,000 people in the fight against the Islamic State, who took back the caliphate's, so-called caliphate's physical territory so that it would be much harder to launch attacks, not only in the region, but in the United States and in Europe. And now with the new administration, I think we follow in the Daughters of Kobani, their stories all the way up to this moment where it really does hang in the balance. And we'll see which way this goes going forward.
And when we talk about the true heroes here, one is Azima, 3 attempts on her life. Talk to us about how she survived.
She is just, I think every one of us has in our family somebody who will never take no for an answer, a daughter or a sister or a friend. And she is that person. She's kind of this swashbuckling, larger than life character. ISIS shot her in Kobani. They later tried to blow her up. And the thing she says always is, I will not let them win. And I think what was fascinating to me is they said 2 things. One is you cannot allow a world in which men buy and sell women. You cannot allow that to stand. And the second thing that struck me was their humanity, because Azima, as we're in the middle of that interview that you're watching, she started telling me how in the middle of the fight with ISIS in Kobani, her sister called her on the phone. And she thought it was her commander calling, and she's making plans. And she starts yelling at her sister in front of her troops saying, come on, I told you I would call you as soon as the fight was over. Can't you just give me a second? You know, I promise we're trying to fight ISIS here. And I think we've all had that moment where our lives collide and our worlds collide. Only this was the most extreme version of women who really were building a future that looked different for the next generation of girls and boys.
You know, you've written about Afghanistan in your previous books, and now, of course, women's lives there are right on the cusp of being abandoned, potentially, if the Taliban negotiations go in the wrong direction. Again, in Syria, can these women have any measure of equality, such as they didn't have, now that they've proven that they can take on ISIS? When they go back to their villages, can they still have some measure of equality?
I think it's such a great question, because for them, the military piece was only a means to an end for the governing piece. Because what Nowruz, who's one of the commanders you'll meet in this story, her mother was illiterate, never got to go to school, and said, don't let your life be like mine. She ends up being the head of all women's force. And what she said was, what we want is for when we say women can lead in war, then they must govern come peacetime. And I think that is the thing that is so striking. They have the word women is 13 times found in their founding documents. Women are co-heads of the towns that they took back from ISIS. Women are having civil councils that are part of representing what women are doing. And so I think it's that whole spirit of putting women right at the heart of the story, of the politics and of the war, that is their aim, not just for them, but for the next generation.
Well, Gayle, you are the one that can't take no for an answer in our circle of friends. So congratulations. We can't wait for the movie. Again, this has been optioned already, the way Ashley's War was. So thank you, Gayle Tzemach, the Daughters of Kobani.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to all of them, these courageous women.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.